Okay, so I wanted to show you progress for the last couple of weeks. Um, what you'll notice here is that there's a bunch of vehicles, and this is what I've kind of been focusing on for a couple of weeks, is just being able to gain and control a number of vehicles. I've still got another 30 or 40 still to do. Essentially, I can get an infinite supply of vehicles to rig up. So what I've been doing is mainly just rigging these things up, right? Making sure that they're drivable and you can get in and out of them and that kind of thing. So this is my favorite so far. I call it the Scooby van. But you'll notice that I kind of messed up on the back wheel there in that I didn't get the center of the axle and when I rigged the skeleton up. And so it's been a learning curve, put it that way. Also, I've got the new character costume in, so that this is the max radiation protection one. I actually started with this red sports car, but the original version I imported from the Unreal Engine from Epic's vehicle template kind of drove sideways, and it made me violently ill for a couple of days because it had a 110-degree field of view and it ran really quickly and stuff. So you won't probably be using sports cars in the game, although I might leave them in there just for an option. The point for all of this is for the player to work towards gathering a bunch of vehicles for different use cases. And this red one, you can see that there's interaction points, right? The point here, if you look in the top left-hand corner, there's an oxygen supply meter. So how much oxygen you've got left, and if you press the interaction key on the refill oxygen, you can basically take oxygen out of any of these vehicles. And also, while you're in a vehicle, you are automatically supplied with oxygen. So there's a few things still to do. Obviously, the one here is that you need to be able to see the character ride on the actual vehicle itself, so I've still got to do the pose processing for that. That's one. This is a fun vehicle to play with, so I might leave this one in and just take the sports cars out. But this one was Epic's example of doing things like animation for the suspension and stuff, so still useful one to have a look at. And then all of the more funky ones, this doesn't use the Epic, but it uses the Chaos vehicle stuff still, but it uses a very different setup for input and things. So I'm slowly migrating it to the basic template that I want to use for everything, but it's not quite there yet. But it has things like wibbly wobbly antennas, which is kind of cool if you look at them when you stop. It's got like the particle emitters on the wheels as they're going through. All of these vehicles need an emitter so that the snow gets to like an indent where you've been. But the thing about the this particular vehicle, it came from an asset pack, so you know a lot of this was already done. I'm just slowly migrating it towards my own setup. It's not that easy to see on this particular weather condition, so let me restart that for a second. I'll change the weather. Something like dust calm will do it. Or yeah, dust calm will do it. So if we run that again now, be a little bit easier to see. So go to the truck and just back it up gently. Oh, it's really hard to do, but you'll see that you get like a connection indicator to say that you might be able to connect to a trailer. The trailer doesn't have any resistance on its physics, so it keeps going forever right now, but yeah. So this is what you'll do. You'll grab your trailer and drive off with it. And I want a train of these vehicles eventually, so that's one of the things that I kind of think is useful. But there's some useful things I've learned from this. You know, the lighting setup and stuff works pretty well for that. If we go in one of these sports cars, these are just the same base with different meshes. They've got lights. The off-road vehicle doesn't, because there's no like actual lights on the mesh, so I probably shouldn't use them. Where's my Scooby van? Definitely does have lights, although they're a little bit wimpy, to be honest. And I've got to change the materials on them so that they are more emissive when you've got the lights on. So the final vehicle I'll show you is actually meant for inside, so you won't necessarily be, well, I mean, you can, but you won't necessarily be expected to be going outside with this one. But again, this one is from another asset pack, so it's got slightly different controls. So I've still got to rig all of this stuff up. The point is that every vehicle could potentially have slightly different inputs. So I'm going to try and unify most of them with, the same stuff. But this one's got a lot of really useful use cases. In this particular case, I'm thinking this one is there for storage. So you'll get, you'll be able to just pick things off shelves. So yeah, that vehicle, of course, it's a little bit buggy still. I need it to automatically go down when you get off it, that kind of thing. But it's actually really good fun to drive these things. This one goes faster when you've fully retracted the scissor lift, which is a nice little feature, so I'll keep that in. But it has this particular problem, which is that occasionally it just bugs out pretty badly. It does have a reset, I think. But anyway, I'm going to ignore it for now. So that's what I've been working on for the last sort of week or so. The thing to think about, I ran out of oxygen then, but I switched off being killed by it. The thing to think about is that, like, normally your visibility will be something like this. So having a vehicle that protects you, supplies you with oxygen, gives you a bit of radiation protection, allows you to navigate the world, right? So what you'll do is, for the most part, I want you to feel like you should stay in contact with a pipeline. So let me just give you a sort of feel for what that's like. So the idea is that the pipelines give you all of the resource, right? They supply oxygen at these stations. So you will want to stay near them when you're on foot, because otherwise you'll run out of oxygen and die. But if you're in a vehicle, you're automatically supplied with oxygen. So different vehicles will have different speeds and that kind of thing. But the world's navigated through the pipelines, right? The pipes are the things that provide the resources for the world. And so everybody's connected with these pipelines, right? All the towns and stuff are fully focused on being somewhere near a pipeline so they can gather resources. And the world itself, the sort of overworld, will have a number of different pipelines that you can follow. So there's a risk, right? There's a risk of not being near a pipe. Oops, that one's blowing in the air. Great fun. There's a risk for not being near a pipe. The risk is mitigated somewhat by being in a vehicle. But as you go away from a pipe, like, you can't really see an awful lot, but you'll encounter a bunch of different, you'll have encounters essentially, right? So that means that some things will just kind of come out of the fog essentially as you're traveling, and you'll be able to scavenge them. So, like, there will be nomad villages, nomad settlements and things so they send out a bunch of vehicles themselves to scavenge things. As the world shifts, different types of things become scavengeable. And so it's kind of a fully dynamic world. The world itself is kind of changing as we're going along. Again, a lot of that sort of procedural generation style stuff. Very much like Mountain Blade, if you've ever played that. It's kind of the same idea, is that like you will encounter things that are travelling along the world in much the same way, right? They're going to set up their little camps every now and then, making sure they're not too far away from a pipeline and that kind of stuff. So that's the real focus of this update, is just been getting the vehicles working. I've still got to do the top-down view of it, so you can use them in the overworld, but that's what you'll be doing. You'll be taking your character out, trying to protect them from radiation and oxygen depletion, using vehicles, probably slow ones like tractors and trucks and that kind of thing, or maybe more fun ones like this Scooby van. And you'll go and discover the world, and you'll collect some things from the world, and then you'll stick it in your storage. I don't know whether I showed the storage, but it's basically sort of an inventory for each vehicle. And when you get back to base, you take your storage out and stick it in a rack somewhere. So it gives you a way of scavenging new stuff. And the nomads are the ones that do that for a living, so they'll trade with you for things they're interested in. And pretty much every faction in the game will trade with you different parts of things. So discovering the factions, making them like you, and just generally kind of navigating the world is a big part of the game. So that's what I wanted to show you, is that we're starting to sort of make some progress on how that works in terms of like the feel of travel and that kind of thing. But you know, you can just literally just walk off into nothingness if you want. Take that risk. You might run out of oxygen, as I'm going to very shortly, unless I get into a vehicle. So you spend some time in a vehicle, your oxygen goes back up again, or you just go to the oxygen supply point. Keeps you alive for a short while. You can see I've been taking radiation damage with my health as well. So yeah, this is all kind of, you know, the work in progress part of it. Okay, that's us done.